Hi, I'm Harry Rock, and welcome to another edition of the Westfield Council on Aging Presents. This is a collaborative effort between Mike Squindo, Executive Director of the Westfield Senior Center, Tina Gorman, COA Special Projects Coordinator, and Pete Coles, producer of WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15. Our topic today is all about the registry, and my guests are Cheryl Coakley-Rivera, Register of the Hampden County Registry of Deeds, and Laura Marino, who is the Land Court Technical Assistant. We're going to be discussing the role of the Hampden County Registry of Deeds, which is responsible for the recording, storing, and retrieving of all legal documents affecting titles to real property in the county's 5 cities and 18 towns. So welcome to the show, Cheryl and Laura. I am excited to have the two of you here. I feel like I have a true rock star because your name is everywhere and you've been in public service for so long. And Laura's really very, very nice to meet you as well.
Same here. Thanks for having us.
But when I realized what the topic was, I said, oh my gosh, Harry, you don't know a thing about this. So I had to start doing some research and stuff. So I'm really interested in learning more about this because it's obvious something that affects everybody, regardless of age, and around the whole issue of legal documents as it relates to property. So I guess I'm going to start with Cheryl, I'm going to start with you on what is your role? What is your specific job description, so to speak, with the Registry of Deeds, and how long have you been there?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, we're thrilled.
Great.
Yeah, this is awesome, and you are the rock star. I'm just like this old boulder at this point. I'm an administrator. That's what I do. Right. So it's a position that I ran for approximately 6 years ago.
So it's an elected, it's not appointed, it's elected.
It's an elected position. It was originally a county elected position, similar to clerk of courts, similar to the register of probate, similar to the sheriff.
Okay.
So they were counties, and the counties dissolved and then went into the state. And we are overseen by the secretary's office, Secretary Galvin.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So if you look in the budget, we would be under his budget.
Okay.
We wouldn't be under what people would think of the trial court.
Okay.
Because we were at the Hall of Justice.
Right.
So it's an elected position. A person would run every 6 years. We do not have term limits per se. Our term limits are set by the people.
Okay. Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, I'm a firm believer in that, because if you take away the people's vote, we're going down a slippery slope.
Right.
And so my predecessor was Mr. Don Ash, and he served for 36 years.
Wow.
35 over 35 years.
Yeah.
He was never skipped a beat. Just served. I mean, he brought us into the digital age. He stayed right on top of everything, regardless of how many terms. And if you ever knew him, he was the best dresser ever.
Immaculate.
Yeah, very respectful man, and did a wonderful job. And so he served for 35 years. I don't plan on doing that. That was a different time.
Yeah.
Right.
But yes, so it's an elected position, and I'm the administrator, right?
So how many years have you been in so far? This is your first?
So it's been one term.
This is your first term right now?
It was last
so you're
December.
now in your second term.
Yes.
Correct.
So in January I was sworn in.
Okay.
And that now I'm serving my second term, and I'm only months into the second term.
Okay. And what did you do before this?
So before this, I was an assistant clerk under Laura Gentile, who's the clerk in Superior Court. So I'm also an attorney by trade.
Okay.
And as an assistant clerk in Superior Court, we were the keeper of the records for all criminal and civil matters.
Okay, so that's the connection to this. Okay, I was wondering, how does somebody get interested in deeds and property and records? And
Ironically, historically, the clerk of courts was also the clerk of these records.
Oh, wow.
Historically.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
so it's weird how that happened.
And in some states, they are the same.
Still.
It is. You can record at the clerk's office.
Yeah.
And so what do you like best about this job? Why is it that this is obviously a passion for you? And again, you wouldn't have rerun if it wasn't something you were interested in or enjoyed doing. So what is it that gets you up in the morning and says, I can't wait to get to the office?
Well, I think the most, what I love is the people, like serving
Yeah.
people. And I don't want to say that cliche, serving people. I just love being around people
Right.
and helping people.
Right.
And if I can help you, great. That makes my day, right? And so when I was an assistant clerk, you were pretty much in that courthouse 24/7. You are in your courtroom and you are serving the judge and your constituents, whether it's the defense, the prosecution, whatever, and you have to stay there,
Okay.
seated for 8 hours a day.
Okay.
You get, maybe you'll get a lunch break, maybe you won't, but you cannot leave, and you're not part of the community per se. You're not out there teaching or anything like that. And so I did that for approximately 5 years, and I loved that job. I worked with some of the best people in the world. Unfortunately, I was in that courthouse 24/7, and I wanted to get out. I missed being out in the community, and so that's where the workshops came from, and that's where I decided to run for Register of Deeds,
Wow.
to be back out in the community.
And Laura, your role as the land court technical assistant.
Yeah.
She's important.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is a mouthful, but you are really the assistant register
Right.
to Cheryl.
To Cheryl.
So how long, is yours a hired position, appointed or elected?
I'm
Is-
a hired position.
Okay, you're
Yeah,
hired.
I'm a salaried employee
Okay.
of the state.
Okay.
I came from a background of, I actually practiced real estate law.
Oh,
So I was on the other side of the counter
okay.
for over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So my role comes in where it comes down to the administrative part of it, where I knew from the other aspect what the attorneys prepared and how the attorneys
sure.
worked with the registry, and the documents and all of that. So now I'm on the other side of the counter, and my role on the other side of the counter, being part of the registry, is, are we in compliance? Are we meeting the guidelines? That kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's weird to be on the other side now.
And how long have you been in this role?
Since 2020, January of 2020.
wow.
Yeah. So I started in January, and then COVID hit,
Oh, gee.
and everything turned upside down.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we had 3 people, and she was one of them working out of the courthouse. Everybody else was working from home.
Right.
because we had to keep working, so we were
Right.
essential employees.
We were essential. We didn't skip a beat.
We didn't skip a beat. thank
Good for
God.
you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow. And so how many offices are there,
Mm-hmm.
and where are they?
Well, we have 2. We
Oh.
have, there was a satellite office in Westfield.
There
And
was
our-
since 2005. It's been here.
Yes.
In Westfield. So
Oh.
Westfield, since 2005 under Don Ash, he created a part-time satellite office
And where is that located?
at City Hall.
At City Hall,
Right.
okay.
So that was open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but it was not a full-service office. It was just a kind of a satellite office, and I think the thinking behind that was we have to have a place west to serve Westfield, the hill towns, just make it
Oh,
easier for them
sure.
to come
Right,
down
right. Yeah.
and provide a service. So he thought, again, another wonderful thing that under Don Ash, always thinking ahead,
Right.
he said, well, let's set up a satellite office. And with the partnering of Westfield's government, the mayor at the time and city council, he was able to establish that. And what Cheryl has done is take it one step further. And thank you to Mayor McCabe, because he also provided additional space for us where we can actually now, we have a full-fledged, full-service office
Wow.
in Westfield, which people are very grateful for, especially the
Where
hill
in
towns.
City Hall is it located?
First floor.
First floor.
First floor. So we have the same office that was there part-time for part-time services. We expanded it. Our private offices where we deal with personnel issues and HR stuff is also on the first floor. And then we have some space downstairs for like our plan machine so we
that's
could
interesting.
scan the plans that come in that get recorded. So, yeah.
And then you
we're
have a
very
second
thankful.
office in
The
Springfield.
second
Yes.
office is at Dwight Street. in
Or
Springfield.
36 Dwight Street.
We
yeah.
used to be at the courthouse,
Okay.
but obviously the mold, the district
Right.
attorney and our office walked out, and they put us at Dwight Street.
Where the Secretary of State's office is there.
Yeah,
The
the-
Western Division.
Yeah.
Oh,
They call it the
okay.
little courthouse, the little state house.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we're there now.
Yeah.
And we love it. It's
Yeah.
safe for the employees. The air is
Clean.
clean air, no toxicities or anything
Right,
like that.
right.
And we have great security there. It's similar to the courthouse.
And is that open 5 days a week?
Yes,
Is
5 days a
Both
week.
offices
Both
are 5 days a
offices.
week from what time to what?
8:30 to 4:30 every day.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, and we don't close for lunch. I know that's a misconception that is out there, and we
That's
want to make
important to know.
sure.
And that makes it convenient for a lot of
Yeah.
people who have to use their lunch break.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
So that's good of you to
Yeah.
do that.
No,
don't
customer
close.
service is our
Top priority.
top priority. Like when you call our office, when I first got there was a answering service, but then there was a receptionist, and I didn't understand.
Yeah, right, right.
I really didn't understand that, right? When you call, most people, they don't, unless you're an attorney, you really don't know what department, do I want photography, do I want land court,
Right,
so you don't know what to, what
even
buttons to
know.
press. So now
Yeah.
you're on the phone, even myself, when I would call. So we did away with that altogether. So the phone cannot ring more than 3 times.
I love it.
Okay?
That's the rule.
You're going to get a person. That person is going to stay
Love
on
it,
that
love
phone
it.
as long as possible. We'll walk you through our website. We'll walk you through any
tests
questions
you.
you have.
She
I
tests
literally will go out and I'll have you call while I'm sitting there, put it on speakerphone.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're wonderful. Like
We have
the
great
employees that we have at our registry, I mean, they are some of the most kindest people that work for the state.
Yeah.
And you will be able to tell.
How many people are on your staff in Springfield and how many are here in Westfield?
Well, that varies a little bit, but in Westfield, we have 2 people in the public office taking in documents.
yeah.
And then on occasion, depending upon what we're working on, the admin people, me,
Yeah.
Cheryl, and Bridget. In Springfield, it's usually around 18, 19 people that are working there.
18 or 19?
We actually downsized. I'm a big, save the...
Wow.
Save,
When we started,
yeah.
when you started, it was
30, 34, something
yeah,
like that,
35.
36.
Oh, I had
something
no
like
idea
that.
it was that large.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
Wow.
big
Oh, that's a big operation.
It was, and we like to save taxpayer money, right?
Mm-hmm.
We work for the taxpayer. Our salaries,
Refreshing to hear someone say that.
our salaries are they come right out of your paycheck, right? So
Right.
you work really hard and you pay taxes and you want to see what your tax dollars are going for. And so with technology the way it is, we felt we didn't really need 33 employees. So as people retired, we've decided not to fill positions.
Right.
And save the taxpayer some money that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it works out.
That's awesome. I want to talk about your service area. So I know you're Hampden County, and you are, what did I say, 5 cities and 18 towns.
Yeah.
What does that encompass? What's that footprint look like?
So I always like to say, so Holland to Agawam, Westfield, Springfield, Chicopee, Blandford,
Russell.
Russell, Chester, Montgomery.
Oh, wow.
We're
Okay.
Yeah.
Hamden,
Palmer, Munson,
East Longmeadow.
Wow. And you go as far west as Chester,
Yep.
up Route 20. Wow.
Yep.
So that's a pretty
Yeah.
big area.
It is.
and we do our workshops. We just came back from Holland.
Yeah.
What day was that?
Last Wednesday.
Last Wednesday, we
did a
went to
workshop.
Holland. We did a wonderful workshop at it's now called the community room. It used to be their senior center. And it's great for us, and it's great, especially the towns, because they don't get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
And we understand. You
They
know,
can't believe it when we go out there.
yeah,
They're like,
they love it.
we can't believe it that you're the Register of Deeds and you're here. And she's always like, yeah, I work for you.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
They're always
Yeah.
surprised to see her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
It's awesome.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't even know where Holland is. I've heard of it, but
Yeah,
I
it's
wouldn't even-
beautiful
It's
out
beautiful.
there.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
absolutely gorgeous out there.
So let's start getting into the Registry of Deeds. And let's talk about the role, the function, the purpose of it.
Yeah.
The purpose of the Registry of Deeds is obviously to be the keeper of legal land documents.
So it's just land.
Yes.
Land documents. You had Rosemary Sakamani.
Yep.
She is in charge of wills, trusts, divorces, child support. She has
Okay.
a variety,
documents.
yes, a variety of areas that she's responsible for. We are responsible for land.
And
Title
so
to
when we
land.
talk about land, we're talking about it could be forest land, it could be a house on a on a piece of property. But
Exactly.
anything that's on that land is included in that.
So that's another misconception in terms of what people think of, because we'll get calls sometimes and they'll ask us, who lives at so-and-so building, or can you tell me when this particular house was built or this particular building was built? Our role is more about the land it sits on. So we have plans for the land. If something is being subdivided, that's recorded with us. But we don't get into blueprints of houses.
Okay,
So that's with the cities and the towns.
okay.
So that's another misconception. A lot of people will call us and say, I just want to know who lived in my house 100 years ago. And we can give you some kind of semblance of, well, we can help you with the ownership of that, but we can't help you with the occupancy of that.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So let's take an old farmhouse that's built in 1850,
Mm-hmm.
just as an example. You can go back in your records and see who the various landowners were.
Yes.
Going all, and how
Yes.
far back
Yes.
can you go
So
in time?
our records go back, our records go back to 1636.
Is that right?
Yes. In fact, I brought an a copy. This is something that's part of our workshops that we hand out. And that's an example, for example, of an old record that's written in Old English. Isn't that cool?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
We can't read it.
Right.
Right.
I
We
just
can't
saw
read
a
it.
program where they're trying to, was it the Constitution or something
Yes.
like that, where they're trying to interpret how, these proper English, but you can't read it.
So
And they're trying to
about the
figure out
Boston
and
College?
transcribe this into common day English
Yes.
that people could understand.
Right. So these are the records. These are the old records that we do have, and they go back to the 1600s.
Look at that penmanship.
Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? So actually, we got a call from someone out in Longmeadow, and he wanted us to provide him with a data dump. Because what he was trying to do, he worked for the Historic Commission, and he had some interest in records like that. And he was working with Boston University. And so sometimes we'll get these calls, and we're like, well, what are you doing with Boston University? So then he was like, well, we have these old records. We want to transcribe them so that, we can understand what it says. And I'm like, well, we have records that we want to understand what it says. So we got in touch with Boston University, and we hooked up with something called the Spark program. And like the Register said, right, Cheryl said, we always try to save the taxpayer money. So there's a bunch of students, and they needed an assignment to work on during spring break. And they actually were able to help us, provide us with some kind of program that helps transcribe those records. So now that's what we're fiddling with.
We actually looked into a company. How much did they want to charge?
Right. So we looked into a company to transcribe records, and for like only 10,000 documents, which sounds like a lot but isn't a lot. They wanted like over $60,000.
Oh my gosh.
So
Right.
so she's like, let's see if Boston University could do it
I
for
love it.
free.
I
So
love
we
it. Right.
partnered
That's a
with
great
Boston
partnership.
University. Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that we have.
These
yeah.
are very interesting in the sense that and anyone can have access to these.
Yeah.
It'll
They're
say
all on our website.
shall not sell to women.
Oh yeah.
You'll
Is that
see that.
right?
Yes.
There'll
No
be
property
restrictions.
Restrictions. Race will
Yeah.
be in there. Sex will be in
gosh,
there.
really?
It's really
Very
a history
interesting.
lesson
I was
just to
going to
read
say,
these.
talk about the
Yeah.
socioeconomic,
Yeah.
socio
It's a history
historical
No
records of
Native
this.
American
Yeah.
or only Native American.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Very interesting.
So I would think that historians who are researching or trying to write books and stuff, you're a resource for them as far as understanding who owned the property,
Yep.
And who those people were. But you don't know anything about the people, the owners of the property per se,
Right,
do you?
we don't know, but what we often tell people is there's other references, and now with the internet, I mean, before the internet wasn't around, but now with the internet, people are able to like cross-reference things.
Right.
So like they'll start with their ancestry.coms and their 24, and me and that kind of thing, and then they pick up names, and then they can run names through our system. They go through the yellow pages and directories, old directories. They go to their town hall. So there's a lot of people interested in that. So they're doing a lot of cross-referencing. It's very interesting because people will call us randomly, and we're nosy. So we're like, well, what are you doing? And then they tell us, and so we want to know, because if we know a way for them to get information, even if it's not with us, we try to help them, like the museums and stuff like that.
So this is actually very, very interesting.
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten into the meat of what we want to talk about yet. But my wife and I enjoy driving down some of these old gravel roads in Massachusetts because it gets you off the grid, so to speak.
Yeah.
And you come across these old foundations. And I love looking at them, trying to envision, was this a farmhouse? Was this a barn? What was this? And there's some really interesting ones that we've come across. So my question to you as I think about this is, if I know the location of the property, you're able to look it up and determine who owns it now, and also who owned it in the past and what would have been there?
Yeah, I mean,
Can you get that specific? Or?
It could get tricky.
Yeah, it could. I mean, it depends, because the way that things...
I'm just curious as to how deep you can go with
I mean, you can really go deep. I mean, the best way to search is by name. That's always the best way to search.
So if they want to know something about a certain property, they really need to know the name.
The name is the way to go, and
Okay.
the proper spelling of the name.
Okay.
And because things are usually, we have a grantor-grantee index. That's another directory where you can search back as to the ownership by name, and then what they owned, and then who they obtained it from, and then back again. So you could go down a rabbit hole. I mean, you really can.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, really,
Yeah.
really interesting. So let's start jumping into it. I think, we always hear the term deed.
Yes.
What is a deed? Let's get really basic.
That is, right. Yeah.
What is a deed?
Oh, I was just going to say,
Legal
a
document.
deed is a legal document that reflects ownership and ownership rights.
Okay.
And legal rights of property, of real property.
Okay. And
Yeah.
what information would you find on a deed?
So the name of the grantor, so the person or people that are conveying title, they're the owners that
So
are
the
conveying.
grantor is the seller.
Is the seller.
Got
it.
Correct, thank you. And then the consideration would be on there, what is being paid, what is being exchanged for that conveyance. It could be $1, it could be 100,000, it could be 12 million. It could be anything.
But there has to be consideration.
But there has to be,
So consideration is
Verbiage.
the payment.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's
because that's where the excise come in.
Yeah.
the
That's where the
almighty
tax-
excise tax.
That's where the tax comes in.
Right.
And then there's the grantees, right? So who is receiving the property?
Grantee is the receiver.
Is the receiver, the buyer, if you will.
Okay,
Okay.
that's great.
And it's funny because a lot of people will they'll pull up their deed and they'll say, why is this guy on my
Yeah.
deed? And they're like, well, that's the person that sold it to you. You're on there too. And then they're like, oh, okay. They go down a little bit, but they don't realize that both of them are going to be on
The
that
first
document.
name, you'll see
Yeah.
the first name, and that's the seller. And
Yeah.
it's like, why is
he on
Yeah.
here? And then the description of the property. So the northwesterly by such and such, tree, and then easterly, and then northerly, the meets.
And if there are any easements,
Yep, if there are any easements,
Oh, yeah, sure.
permissions, restrictions, you'll see like subject to certain rights. Sometimes it's the electric company has rights to cross your property to access a pole. The Water Sewer Commission might have access. So there's a lot that's involved in a deed.
they'll even talk about foreclosure, what steps you need to take or what steps will be taken. if it had come to that.
Yeah, if it had.
So, listening to you, this is really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
So the description of property, as you go back in time, so certainly like the 1800s or 1700s, you said you go back
Yes.
to the 1600s.
Yes.
Were they using physical descriptions of property? They didn't have, I mean, what were they doing for landmarks back then?
Trees.
And now that gets, the
Rivers.
tree is now gone, or a stone wall may be moved, but I mean, how difficult does that get in trying to really?
Very.
Well, very.
Very difficult. In fact, if I were to name the most popular dispute issue, it's property boundaries.
Right.
That's the biggest dispute issue. That's the biggest problem maker. Is
In modern
boundaries.
day, we've got surveyors, so those are easy. It's all mapped out and they've got coordinates and all that. But going back in time, that's got to be.
Yeah, I mean there were pins, and these pins are old. At some point they were put in there, but they shift, and you can't find pins. You only have to find one pin to survey a property. But even that causes problems because we don't know if that pin was moved, and there's all kinds of issues that come up.
Oh,
Yeah, it could get dramatic in the registry.
It could get very dramatic. Like we had a case, there was a fence that was built, say, 20 years prior, and the realtor said, you have that fence and then say 20 feet after that fence.
Right.
And then the neighbor said, no, you don't have 20 feet and I have the fence. And this is the dispute.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it could get very ugly.
Yeah.
But you aren't the solver of the dispute.
No, we are not.
You just
We
give
are
the
not.
information that
Yes,
you have.
Yes, we are not.
In fact, I'm glad that you brought that up because a lot of people assume that just because a document is recorded with the registry, that it's legal. We don't determine whether it's legal. We only take it and make it public record. The only entity that can determine legality of a document and of property title per se is a judge, is a court of law. So an attorney can have an opinion and they could say, based on my review of the record, title is held by X person. We don't determine ownership. So all of that being said, people will call us and say, why is this person on the deed? They shouldn't own this property. Their mother died and left a will, and we hear the whole backdrop of the story. And we're like, the deed met our very, very basic guidelines. They paid the fee. We have to take it. We are a public record repository. Yeah. So it can get funny.
That's interesting. So, wow, that's really interesting. So, people can, but an attorney has to bring you a deed or
Not
record.
necessarily.
No.
Not necessarily. A layperson could. So we always recommend that they utilize attorneys to prepare legal documents, right? But there's lay people that prepared deeds and record them with us, as long as it meets our guidelines.
So, what stops me as a property owner, and I'm going to sell my house, and so I know I have 1.4 acres where I live, and I say, you know what? I'm just going to go. I wouldn't make a horrible criminal because I don't think I'm not creative enough to do this kind of stuff. I'm going to move the pin, and now I sell it as 2 acres, and I'm going to impinge on my neighbor's property because he or she doesn't do anything because it's all overgrown and it's forest, and they'll never miss it.
Right.
And so I say that the property is 2 acres, and I submit that. You have to accept that?
Well-
Or do you go back and look at what was registered before?
That's the thing.
Aha.
So the person
Okay,
that's
so there's some checks and balances on
right,
this.
especially if the person is paying cash, there's really no obligation for them to hire an attorney. If they wanted to believe that you own 2 acres and you want to sell them 2 acres and they have the cash and they're willing to pay you, they could do that. And they could get fraudulently, bamboozled there. But most of the time, people will hire an attorney and run what's called a title examination, and they will determine what your actual ownership is. And they'll have an inspection plan produced that highlights what the area actually is, not 2 acres, but 1.4 acres.
Okay.
They will make sure that you own the property, that you have title to the property. So there's checks and balances.
So say you
Okay.
do that, and it's 2 acres. That's why the person buying that property would want title insurance,
Right.
Aha.
okay?
Okay.
To protect them.
Okay. So, lesson learned here, don't go out and move pins.
Right.
Don't move
Because
Right.
you're going to get caught.
You're gonna get
It's not
caught.
that easy as just taking a piece of
Don't move
paper and
pins.
giving it to them saying, oh, this is what I really
Eventually,
own. So
yeah.
they're going to go
That's
back and do their
right.
due. So
That's right.
I'm not suggesting anything
Yeah.
here.
No,
I just
no,
want to
no,
get that,
no,
I want to make
no,
that
no.
clear. So if people want a copy of their deed, they can just come to either the Westfield office or the Springfield office and request that, and you will
Yes.
give a copy of whatever. Is there a cost for that, or?
That's all you, boss.
So basically, you can get like a legal copy, and that's certified, and you can only get that at one of our 2 offices.
Yeah,
Okay.
we
Or-
would have to certify it.
Certified, or you can print it up at home.
And that would not be certified.
How do they print? They can go online?
They can
Yep.
go online and
And
print
they
it up
could
at
print
home.
out their deed
So they
right
can-
off. the
Oh, is that
computer.
right? So you can go online and find it and print it out?
Yeah, you won't get the certified copy.
Okay.
The certified copy, you can call us, you can come in, you can mail a request, and we will provide you with a free certified copy
The
of your deed.
certification makes it as
As
an
good as-
original.
Yeah, it's as good
Like it would
Okay.
be an original.
Okay.
That could be used in court and what have you.
Okay.
Whereas a copy could be, anybody could have made it up.
Right.
And the reason I said ask the boss is because by the statute, it's $1 a page, but she's giving it out to anybody that owns property courtesy, 0 cost. One of these days, we're gonna get arrested. On our
because
registry on the
you
go.
figure you purchased your house. You pay your excise. You
That's
pay
the
your
point.
taxes on your property.
The least you
and,
can do.
and you pay taxes on everything in your property, like in your home.
Right, right.
I mean, just think about it. And the least
Right.
we can do is give you a copy of
Well,
your deed.
my job is to keep you not arrested, so hopefully.
I won't get arrested. No, I won't get arrested. But I just
said
thought
that.
like $1 is a lot of money
Yeah.
for a copy of something.
Of the
Right,
pages especially,
right.
yeah.
Good for you. That's great. So if both spouses' names are on a deed and one person sadly passes away, does the deed need to be updated with a single living name, or does it remain in both people's names?
It will remain, this is such a typical question. That document will remain the way that it is. Now,
With
when
both people's names
With both
on it.
people's names on it. When you ask the question, do they need to do something? We don't require that they remove anyone from the deed. And we don't require that any person be added to the deed. That all depends on what the purpose and course of action that they need to take for their particular individualized situation. So if someone's passed away and they're on the deed, that doesn't affect us as a registry, and it may not even affect them. They might not even have to do anything. They might be being told they should, but that the reason behind it, they need to work out with a legal representative, somebody that can talk to them, a lawyer that can explain why they would need to do that. But we don't require
We
that.
get a lot of calls because the tax bill would still be in both names.
Yeah,
The tax, and so, cities and towns only change tax bills when deeds are changed. So they call us to say, the city told us we have to change the deed. Well, you don't really have to change the deed in that case if somebody passed. The city would have to change who they're billing.
right.
Okay.
But because their billing is based on the names on the deed, they won't change it.
Okay.
And that really frustrates the consumer, obviously.
Right, because that's an additional cost.
Okay.
And we don't want them to spend the money
Right.
if they don't have to. So
Right.
sometimes we get involved with that. Sometimes Cheryl will call the different cities and towns and say, hey, this person's spouse passed away. It upsets them that they keep getting a tax bill with their name on it. It's a reminder. It's
sure.
emotional.
Right,
So
right.
she'll, with her
And there'll
very
be a death
convincing
certificate
ways-
filed. You can file a death certificate.
Yeah.
So if you file a death certificate, it's recorded in our office that your husband passed away. So the whole world knows that you now own that house outright all by yourself, let's
Right.
just say. And there's a death certificate, right? So that's a legal document, right?
So once that happens, she'll call the city and town.
To say there's a death certificate.
You know, give them a break, get them off the deed. It's upsetting them. She
'Cause it-
does a lot of convincing of these.
Well, we don't have forms. So if you go to criminal court, there's a form, a complaint, there's a form, you fill in the boxes.
Right.
In the Registry of Deeds, there are no forms.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to make it up yourself.
Yeah.
And if you leave a name out or add a name or leave some language out and you think all I'm doing is taking my former husband's off the deed, well, you could be really taking your right
Yeah.
to
you
that
have to be
property
very
away as
careful.
well. So because we don't have forms, it would cost you.
We try to be
$300,
we try to creatively
$155 for
assist.
filing.
Oh, wow.
You know, so it can get not like overly expensive, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
To just say I want
Yeah.
to take my husband's name off the deed.
Right.
Right.
It's not that simple.
So they're not required to do it. It's really they can choose to do it, but they
Correct.
don't have to do it.
Right.
And if there's a female who gets remarried, she's single owner of a property, gets remarried, and she takes the name of her partner. Does that require a name change, or does it still remain with her original name?
So
Does that make sense?
yes, it does, and that it's interesting because these are things that overlap with other situations. Like in this particular case, the fact that she still in her maiden name is on the deed. That's how she owns the property. But now she's married and everything else is under her married name. Well, she doesn't want the conflict, right? She doesn't want the discrepancy.
Right.
But then, do you want to pay $155 to record a new deed and hire an attorney to prepare it? So what we've been telling people is just see if you could prepare like a simple affidavit saying, I was so-and-so, I'm now so-and-so. It doesn't change the deed, but at least there's a record of a new name.
An affidavit would be like sworn facts written down that you
Right.
swear is true in front of
Yeah.
a witness.
Yeah. So there's alternatives.
So it doesn't have to be in front of an attorney. It can be
Right.
done in front of a witness.
A witness.
A notary public.
A notary republic.
notary public,
Okay,
yeah.
I got it. I
Yeah,
got
so
it.
there's alternatives to things, but
And then you file in our office, right? So that
Yeah.
you know. So
But you just have to make sure that the outcome, what you want to actually be the outcome, matches why you want it and why you need it. Like we had a situation where a woman was denied, or they were attempting to deny her a home insurance claim because when she got married, when she bought the property, she had her maiden name, her husband had his name. She never changed it, but the insurance was in her married name.
Oh.
And so they're like, well, you're here as so-and-so, but you're on the insurance as so-and-so. And they were trying to play games with her.
Yep.
So that was a suggestion.
you get that a lot. We get a
Yeah.
lot of calls. The insurance will cut the check in my deceased husband's name and my name. And
But he's
they'll
deceased.
say the insurance, in order for you to get coverage, you have to file a new deed. Well, the husband is passed, so he's not signing anything, right?
Right.
So, and you don't have to.
Right.
But this is just another way the insurance company, in a lot of cases, will hold on to your insurance money,
Yeah.
right? And they won't pay the claim.
Yeah.
They'll make you jump through hoops.
So, it has to do a lot with people's different aspects of their life, how things are reflected in our office.
It sounds like your job is not straightforward of, okay, here's a deed, it's a piece of paper, let's file it, our job is done.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gray area here.
Yes.
And problem solving and,
Yes.
and kind of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together.
And
But
we have a lot of calls. We get a lot of calls, which we love.
Yeah.
Because it gives us an opportunity to help people
Mm-hmm.
and to
Right.
learn, because a lot of
Right.
calls we can learn from as well.
Right. And I don't know where I picked the, I was doing some research preparing for this. So I was spending time on your website, and I don't even understand the question that I've got written out here, but is there always a deed through a last will and testament? Does that
That-
make sense? Where
that's-
Did I get that off your website, or where did I?
Yeah, you
pull-
did.
Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
That is a good question. It's not asked of us in that way, so we're gonna work on that on the website. But a lot of people think that if somebody passes away, that just because the will said Jim Smith gets the house, that there's gonna be an automatic deed with us when when Dad passed away and Jim probated the estate. There is not an automatic deed that gets recorded with us. So that's when, like, Cheryl and Rosemary, I don't know, you guys talk
So
every day.
people are like, well, my children, do I need a new deed? My children are in my will and they get the property. Just because it was probated doesn't mean that anything was filed in our office.
Right.
Legally, if the court deems that will valid and what have you, your children own the property, but they still something still has to be filed in our office.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a disconnect. So if somebody passes away, the will gets probated, it goes through the court determines the will is valid, yes, Jim gets the house, and that's it. That's the extent of the probate part. So then Jim comes to our office and says, well, I probated the estate, the court said I own it, where's my deed? We don't have it. You know, I mean, it's not an
So
automatic
he would have to
thing.
go to an attorney and
Well, the attorney that probated the
You
will
would hope would do that.
Would hope that they would create this will and record it with us. But that's not an automatic thing, which
No.
I don't care for at all, because it leaves the person in limbo.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of a glitch in the communication, and we don't like it when the public don't know what to do, you know, and they don't even know who to ask.
They don't.
So that's why Cheryl is very good about making sure that call us, even if you don't know what question to ask. Give us the scenario so that, because we're lucky that we're lawyers, so we already have the ability to kind of sort through stuff,
Right.
you know, and so we want people to call us.
And I guess that's the thing. They don't know what to ask. They don't. A lot of legal jargon, affidavits,
Yeah.
and grantor, grantee.
Yeah.
You know what? Pick up the phone and say, I'm not even sure what I'm asking, but this
Yeah.
is the case.
That's what we want.
The phone
We'd
will.
rather that. Yeah.
Pretty much it's gonna be answered on the first ring,
Yeah.
second ring, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then you know what? Take your time with us, and explain as much as you want with us,
Yeah.
and we'll try to help you and walk you through whatever we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, you know, I was just thinking about this. So if I buy a piece of property and I have a mortgage on it, is there still a deed filed even though I owe money on it? Or does the deed come to you after I've paid it off? I'm just,
Okay.
I love that question.
Yeah,
We love that question.
okay, so that's a good question.
It's a great question.
that's a good question.
We have gone to pretty much every city in
Yes.
town, and that is that's the question number one.
Yeah.
When will I get my deed? I paid off my mortgage. So mortgages and houses don't work like cars and titles to cars.
Okay.
So when you
So a deed and a title are two different things.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Got it.
so when you buy a car and you finance it, you don't have the title.
Right.
Right. The
Until you
title is
pay it
held with
off.
the finance company until you pay it off.
And,
In Mass-
excuse me, and the registry, right?
Right.
They don't have the title.
Yeah.
We would be considered like the registry,
Yeah.
Okay.
right? The
Right.
motor vehicles.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
right.
And but
The
they don't
finance
have it.
company.
The bank has the title.
So
Okay.
with property, if you buy a house and borrow money to do that, the deed is recorded with us and it should have been given to you because the attorneys have it in their hands. We don't keep documents. They come to us, through us, we scan them and return them. So that deed is with them. They don't know it most of the time. Obviously, we've gotten to that determination, but it is in fact in their possession. There's a deed recorded with us, and right behind that deed is that mortgage to say, yeah, you own the property, but you owe this money. And when you pay off the mortgage, There's another document that gets sent to us. It's called a discharge of mortgage or a satisfaction of mortgage.
Okay.
That document gets recorded with us to say mortgage has been paid in full. And I have to say it because the more it gets out there, the better. Sometimes the banks send that document to the people instead of to us.
So what is it, $30?
It's $105
$105
to record
to record,
that.
yeah, okay,
yeah.
okay. But the bank may charge like $30 or something like that?
Well, sometimes they charge their own fees. We don't get involved in that.
So you pay off the mortgage, and some banks will send the discharge to the owner,
Of the
and
house.
then some will had the fee in the mortgage, and the bank will send it to us to record.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you've already paid for the recording fee
Yeah.
Okay.
in your mortgage, and the bank will send it to us. And so that's where the confusion could
Yeah.
come in.
So an example of someone they'll call our office pretty much like this. I'm waiting for my deed. I paid off my mortgage at least 2 months ago. And then that's when we have to educate and say, you have the deed, but we'll send you a certified copy. Your mortgage has been paid. We see here that a discharge was recorded. We can provide you with a copy of that as well so that you could have it for your records. So then they calm down. They're like, oh, okay.
Well, the bank doesn't really explain.
They
you know.
don't.
They're
They
just
don't.
mad that you were
Right.
able to pay off the mortgage.
They don't expect.
All right. Here's a question. I spent some time reading this on your website, and I was still confused after it. The Homestead Act. What is that? I know that there's an increase. I'm going to let you talk about it.
500 to $1 million.
500,000 to $1 million.
Well, just think the Homestead Act, right? Well, it's to protect your interest in your property, right? So back in the day, if you were sued, somebody fell on your sidewalk or whatever lawsuit,
You owed Sears credit card company.
they could force you out of your home,
Evict you.
evict you
Yeah.
to sell your home, and then they would get their 20,000 or what have you.
Yeah.
That could happen.
Being sold, they would, wow.
Now, would a judge probably do that? Not really, right?
Back in the day, they did.
You know.
Debtor's jail. Remember debtor's jail?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay, there you go. But, so,
Yeah.
the legislature wanted to protect the consumer, right?
Right.
From being ousted from their home because
Right.
they owed $20,000 or $50,000. So they created what they call the Homestead Act, and it's evolved since then. It was 250,000.
Yeah, it was 250, then it went up to 500,000.
500,000.
Now it's up to $1 million as of August of last year, of 2024.
Hmm.
So the way that it works, because I know it's a lot of stuff, right, with the homestead. The way that it would work is if, let's say I own my property and I live in my property, okay, and I record a declaration of homestead that protects me. How does it work? So the way that it would work is, let's say I have people over my home. Somebody slips and falls on my property. My insurance company, which I rely on to pay these situations, says to me, well, I told you to fix your steps. I have it in my inspection report. You didn't fix it. Somebody fell. We're denying your claim, right? Now I'm worried. This person goes to court and sues me because they got injured and they had all of these out-of-pocket expenses. They go to court. A court determines, you're right. There was negligence and you're owed $100,000. They can go to court, get that judgment. They can get it filed with us against my property to say, well, Laura, you owe so-and-so $100,000. They can do all of that. So there will be a lien against my property. It doesn't, we can't say, nah, you can't record this lien. They can record it with us. They can't force the sale of the house to pay them
Okay.
what they're due by that judgment.
Okay.
But if I were to sell the house, then I would have to,
That would come
Pay
right
that
off the
judgment.
top.
yeah.
Oh, that's it.
Like if
After
you
the
owe
mortgage.
taxes, if you owe child support, student
Right,
loans,
right.
Things like that. So it's a protection that you can stay in your home if somebody comes out
Yeah,
to
it
you
protects
for
your
that. Yeah.
homestead. You cannot have
Two.
a homestead here, let's say, in your home in Massachusetts and have another homestead in Florida, for example. When we talk about snowbirds, how they go.
So it's your legal residence.
It's your primary.
I'm sorry,
residence.
not legal.
Yeah, yeah.
Primary, that's
It's
the
your
right word.
primary
Thank you.
residence,
Primary
yeah.
residence. And so when you say it's up to $1 million, that means, so if somebody sues you for $2 million, you're covered for $1 million, but
Yeah.
what about the other $1 million?
So for the most part, the judges are going to say, you're okay. Like, they're not going to throw you out for over 1 million.
Okay.
I mean, the likelihood of that happening, however.
The last time I saw this was the former Mayor Giuliani.
Okay.
He had to sell his property.
Right. Right.
And he,
right.
okay,
I remember that.
there was a lawsuit, what have you, a
Right.
judgment, whatever. And so he had to sell his property. Was he out in the cold? No, because he had many different
Other
properties. But the point is, they made him sell some of his property, or
It's always up to the discretion of the court. The courts are more apt to protect the homeowner, in their primary residence than not.
But for the everyday average person
Mm-hmm.
like myself, we really don't have to worry about anything because my home is worth, I don't know, say 300,000
Right.
at this point with property values the way they are. So if somebody sues me for 300, 400, 500, they can't. It may go on as a lien.
it will go on as a lien.
but
They
it
just
won't.
can't force.
But they can't force me to pay it, and they can't take my property.
They can't force you to sell it, and then
sell
they're
it.
going to get their
Yeah.
money when you sell it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's
And your kids inherit the property without that debt.
You just-
Without that debt.
Oh. It- So when
Explain that.
Yeah.
so if I deed.
Not deed.
Not deed. Will.
Yes.
Will. Get the right terminology here. I'm giving
Right.
my property to my children. When I
your-
die, there's a lien on it from a lawsuit.
That was against you.
Against
not
me.
them.
So they get the property, but they're
Without
not
the lien.
responsible for the lien.
Correct.
Your debt dies with you.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Debt dies with you.
Yes. Now, we're not talking about taxes. We're not talking about a mortgage.
Okay,
We're
okay.
talking about something that is particular to you.
A lien from a nursing home, per se.
Oh.
A lien from a nursing home, that dies with you. Now, the nursing home will still go after
Right.
whoever's in that house.
They'll claim it. They'll claim
They'll
it.
try,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, the debt dies with you.
That sounds like a whole nother topic we might have to
Yes.
explore. I know on your website, in bold red,
Yes.
is the Fraud Alert Consumer Notification System. What is that? And why should people be concerned about taking advantage of that?
Okay, so if there's anything that you get out of this program here today is to sign up for the consumer notification system on our website. It's very easy. Basically, it's to protect you. In real time, if anything is filed in our office, recorded, you will get an email immediately. As soon as I put your name in, you're getting an email saying something has been filed in your name. And
With us.
With us. Now, so you remortgaged. Okay, you were expecting that. I got an alert on my phone. But say you call our office. I didn't do anything with your office. Oh, it's a scammer trying to
Yeah,
present to
right,
us a
right.
fraudulent deed.
Right.
And so that's why, and especially in today's world with all these scammers around in terms of property fraud, it's important to sign up, that you get notified immediately.
Okay. Yeah, and I saw that.
Yeah.
So when I get home, I'm going to do that today.
Do it.
I'm
Yes.
going to do that today.
Everybody
In
should
red,
do it.
bold.
And if I may, we have a lot of seniors watching here today, and they can also put down, there's 5 different versions of their name they can put down to be notified. Say I was Cheryl Rivera, I can put down Cheryl Rivera, Cheryl Coakley Rivera, Cheryl A. Coakley Rivera, just in case anything comes up.
Maiden names.
Anything
married
like that.
names.
There's 5 different versions. But you can also put, say, your son's name. So he'll get notified.
Okay.
If he puts, you know what I mean? If
We'll
he
walk
puts,
him through it.
Yeah, if he puts your name down,
Right.
then he'll get notified if somebody files a deed in his mother's name. And say he doesn't live at the property. He lives in Westfield and she lives in Springfield. But he'll go on and put her name as one of his.
Okay.
So now he's
Oh,
going to be
that's it.
notified that
Okay.
somebody's trying to, say, steal your mother's property.
Right. Right. Okay. And that leads me into what is title fraud?
Right.
They're linked together here.
So that's exactly what we were talking about. So title fraud is when someone takes advantage of the ownership of property by either acting like they're the owner and selling it fraudulently out from under the true owner, either to a second person or to themselves. So we actually had a situation where we had a woman who owned property in Springfield. She bought it from the city. It was one of those tax auctions. The person that owned it didn't pay taxes. Now it's up for auction. She purchased it. It was vacant. And someone filed a deed with us and said from the woman's name to himself. And recorded that deed with us. Now, that deed met all of our guidelines. It had the grantor, it had consideration,
Notary.
it had the notary, it had everything it needed. It went on record with us. And so that would be an example of title fraud.
Now, she didn't live there, but she was just driving by and saw somebody either taking groceries in or cutting the grass.
Right.
So that's where you know,
Yeah.
she came in and wanted to know what was happening, who owns it, and they held it out there like they owned it. Now, keep in mind, this gentleman, his name was, I'll just give you his first name, Felix, he was in Florida jail doing this, out of Florida jail.
He's incarcerated.
He had stolen a notary stamp.
Oh, wow.
Well, the guy had passed away and he took it from him.
Okay.
Okay?
He was working in cahoots with his cousin. Now he has done this in Connecticut. He's done it in Hampden County, Hampshire County, and Worcester County that we know of.
So this is happening more and more. The FBI just put out an alert of quick claim deed fraud,
Yep.
because that's the easiest deed to prepare. And so that's why we want to emphasize our consumer notification system.
Yeah.
What we're working on now is, I think, the first in the country, definitely the first in the state, and the Secretary Galvin is 100% behind it, and other registers. We want to establish some type of passcode, some type of freeze, like you have a credit freeze where no one can,
Right.
go into your credit unless you
Right.
unlock
Okay
the
it.
freeze.
Right.
So we're working on that now. Obviously, you can imagine how complicated that could be because everybody's own property now, and do they really own the property? And so it could get complicated, but that's something that we see in the very near future.
Right.
And it has to be implemented in obviously throughout the state. We have different systems
Right,
in different
different
registries.
programs.
So it's going to get very complicated, and we want to do it right. We want to involve the attorneys, the realtors, and anyone else that wants to sit at the table. But the most important thing about this is that we're protecting the consumer from
Right.
fraud.
Wow. Interesting. We've only got a couple of minutes left here. Are there any top priorities that older adults should be aware of in your mind, that things that come up that we haven't talked about?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and it's not something that we necessarily involve ourselves directly, but we can't help but talk to the senior population, the mature population, about thinking about what to do with their properties and their title to the property, because a lot of people have questions about, well, what if I go into a nursing home? What if
Yeah,
I go into
right.
assisted living? Are they going to take my house?
Right.
The look back period with Medicaid. So what we try to encourage, not only the senior population, but anybody that wants to protect their property, talk to an attorney, talk to someone, real estate attorneys, financial advisors, people that can look at your particular situation and create a good course of action for themselves to protect the asset. Because most people, the most important valuable asset is their home.
Yeah.
And,
right.
There's so much that can happen. The property could be stolen, title fraud, it could go to a nursing home because, there wasn't planned properly. So when you can, try to see how you can prepare a course of action to protect the most valuable asset that you have. Even though that's not something directly that we can help, we certainly want to encourage people to do that, right, Cheryl? I mean,
Yeah.
And,
so
and people are like, well, I just want to give it to my children. So I want to do that right now. I'm just going to keep my name on it. I'll have a life estate, and Jane Doe and John Doe, my children, will then own it. They'll
Yeah.
have the title. Well, unfortunately, your son owes child support, and your daughter has credit card debt. So now those liens were going to go on your property. So we have to tell people to be very careful.
Interesting.
That's why we tell them to see an estate planner, an attorney,
Right.
because all those things can be explained.
there's a lot of factors.
You don't want to quickly, put your son on the deed or your daughter on the deed. A daughter on the deed. I don't want her husband to get anything because I don't like him. Okay, well, then maybe not put the daughter on the deed.
Right.
So these things have to be explained.
Yeah.
It
It can get.
It
what-
gets complicated.
It can.
can get Jerry Springer-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's why we encourage to see an estate planner. And there are some really good ones out there. And just really take the time.
A lot of people are intimidated by the cost, the potential cost of an attorney. A lot of attorneys offer a free consultation. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of a free consultation, because at least you can then touch base, get a sense of it. And I would much rather that than people go on the internet and try to draft documents themselves.
Yeah. Well, with that, that's a great piece of advice, Laura. And I just want to say thank you to the two of you. This has been absolutely fascinating. I've really, really enjoyed this interview. But Cheryl Coakley Rivera, Register of the Hampden County Registry of Deeds, and Laura Marino, the Land Court Technical Assistant. What I will say is, if you've got questions, don't hesitate to call this office as it relates to your deeds, because they are ready and willing and anxious
Yes.
and excited to help you with whatever information you need to solve any questions that you have or any confusion. But that's where you want to start, both here at City Hall in Westfield, as well as on Dwight, what's the number?
436 Dwight.
436 Dwight
The
Street.
old post office.
The old post, that's the landmark we want, the old post office in Springfield.
Yeah.
But if you need help with this particular type of
Please.
question, as it relates to deeds, they're the ones to go to.
Yeah.
Don't forget that this program will broadcast on cable channel 15 every Tuesday and Thursday during the month at 2:45, so you have other opportunities to watch it if you so choose. And we save it to YouTube. You can go onto YouTube and just type in Westfield Council on Aging Presents, and you will find all of our shows stacked up right there for your enjoyment. Special thanks to Pete Coles, our WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15 producer, for making this show possible. And on behalf of Pete Coles, Mike Squindo, and Tina Gorman, I'm Harry Rock, and this has been another edition of the Westfield Council on Aging Presents. We'll see you on the next show.